The EU's new foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, has arrived in Ukraine in a symbolic show of support for Kyiv. She's visiting the capital along with the new head of the European Council, Antonio Costa. It's the very first day of their terms in office. The leaders are keen to demonstrate that the bloc remains firm on backing Kyiv. Ukraine is struggling to fend off a grinding Russian offensive, with U.S. support thrown into doubt by Donald Trump's return to office in January. The visit comes as the EU increases its exports of electricity to Ukraine. Russia has again hammered the Ukrainian power grid with air attacks as cold weather sets in. The EU has already spent €2 billion to keep Ukrainians warm and has committed another $160 million for this winter. DW correspondent Anchal Vohra reports from Brussels.
Russia's targeted attacks have left Ukrainian power plants charred and plunged parts of the country into darkness. Experts have predicted that as temperatures plummet and demand for electricity increases, blackouts could get as long as 18 hours a day in some areas. In a bid to keep Ukrainians warm this winter, the European Union will now increase electricity exports that can cover up to 15% of the country's total needs this winter. It will also provide money for power equipment.
80% of Ukraine's thermal plants have been destroyed and a third of the hydropower capacity. So this is where we will concentrate our repair efforts with the aim to restoring 2.5 gigawatt of capacity this winter.
Last week, the EU offered financial support to one of Ukraine's biggest electricity companies, DTEK, for new equipment. DTEK said it faced the latest Russian attack on one of its power plants just this week.
It was a lot of damage to our energy system. Our power stations were attacked many times, and only in 2024, 11 waves of massive attacks targeting us. But we survived 2 winters, and I'm sure we'll survive third war winter in Ukraine. And all of this because of support we are getting from European Union, from European Commission.
The EU has already spent €2 billion and has roughly compensated for the loss of the massive Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. Now it's assured $160 million more.
A part of this additional money will come from interest earned on Russian assets lying in the European Union to make Russia pay for some of the damages it has caused. But how to put an end to Russia's bombing of repaired and rebuilt infrastructure? Analysts say the only way out is to provide more air defense systems.
The more Russia destroys, the more there is a need to fill this gap. And I mean, how can you live without electricity, without gas, without water?
Overall, the EU intends to cover 25% of Ukraine's total electricity demand this winter. But that might still leave many in Ukraine to fend for themselves as Russia continues to rain bombs.
Let's bring in Oleksiy Goncharenko, a member of the Ukrainian parliament. He joins us now from Kyiv. Welcome, sir. Give us a sense of the severity of the situation Ukraine is facing after numerous attacks by Russia on its energy infrastructure this winter.
The situation is really very difficult, and Russia continues its campaign of terror against civilians. This is Russian warfare style, their war playbook. And for the third winter already, they will try to make everything to make life in Ukraine unbearable. And that's what they're trying to do. They attack energy infrastructure. Now millions of Ukrainians are without electricity. In my native city, in Odessa, for example, it's up to 12 hours throughout the day that in apartments people don't have electricity. It also makes problems with running water, with internet connection, with public transport, with heating, with everything. So the situation is difficult.
What can the Ukrainian authorities do to reduce the impact of these attacks and mitigate the effect on its people?
The best is to answer militarily long-range capabilities to destroy Russian military objects from where they launch these attacks. That's number one thing. Second thing is air defense. More air defense. We need much more. And by this, we can protect our power grid and protect our people from this genocide. Third thing is more sanctions against Russia, because Russia used billions of dollars for missiles and drones, and the only thing why they still can afford it, that because they benefit from oil prices, and their oil and gas industry is not under sanctions how it should be. So this is the main source of their war chest. So that are things which can be done by our partners. What Ukraine should do, definitely we are trying to do it, it's to repair everything which was hit, which was damaged. You already mentioned this DTEK company, which makes a tremendous job just for surviving of Ukrainians. Other energy companies, they're really heroes, and they're doing maximum of they can.
Ukraine is getting some help from the EU, as we mentioned in the report. But what else can allies do?
As I told you, more military capabilities, that's very important. More sanctions, that's very important. And that should be done now, because we don't have much time to lose. We need secondary sanctions on Russian oil and gas industry. That can help us enormously. And that will show Putin that he can't win this war. And that's the only way to make him to go to the table of negotiations. And so we need to, and we should do this. And we hope our allies will help us in this.
That's Ukrainian MP Oleksiy Goncharenko in Kyiv. Many thanks to you, sir.